Welcome to the In Between podcast. Today I am chatting with Rhi Pearce, the founder of RVPA, an operations management and consulting firm for entrepreneurs. Rhi is the chief operations officer for multi-passionate entrepreneurs, coaches, and service providers alike. Rhi, welcome to the In Between podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very dive in.
Yes, I'm so excited. You are, I think, our second international interview. I had someone who was in Peru at the time, but you're in Australia right now?
I am, yes, early morning for me. The sun is shining though, so I can't complain too much.
Well, thank you so much for making time, and I'm so excited to just hop right in. I know that you've got a couple different business ventures going on, but I want to start out talking about operations because a lot of entrepreneurs listen to my show and I think it's such an important part of business. But that transition from like a solopreneur to an actual entrepreneur, it's difficult. So could you tell us what the heck is operations management and why is it important to the entrepreneur or the business owner?
Absolutely. So operations as a whole really is everything that you're doing within your business and how you're doing it. So it spans across all the different departments as well as being its own department. So when we're looking at marketing, when we're looking at finances, when we're looking at team, how those things run and how those things, really make moves in your business is really the operations of your business. So when we come into a business, we're really looking at how do we optimize that so that the entrepreneur and the whole business can really be pushing towards their goals better, more efficiently, and essentially become more profitable and be able to scale faster. So in a nutshell, that's really like what we do and also why it's important, because without placing focus on your operations, essentially you're likely to be going slower, less profitably, and face potentially more roadblocks along the way.
Absolutely. As you were speaking, I was thinking about kind of the quote of working in your business versus on your business. And it can be so hard to, especially I have a service-based business. I'm in social media and it's so easy to sit down and spend all day on my clients. And then 2 weeks go by and I'm like, wow, I have not looked at one thing for my business or how it operates or how, my clients are experiencing their side of things. So what got you into operations? What made you passionate about it?
Honestly, it was a bit of an accident because
Same with my business.
I think it's just built into my personality. I'm very type A. I love to organize things, and that's always been the case. And I've always looked for the best and most efficient way to do things. So back when I was working in corporate, that was picked up quite early on. I was, heavily promoted, always pushed through the sort of staffing pipeline and brought into meetings that were way above my pay grade and sort of focusing on things that were really like a more company-wide initiative. And so that's what tweaked me. So I started my career in luxury hotels. I started as a receptionist and then worked my way all the way through. And that was sort of what triggered it, was because as a receptionist, even when I just started, that's really the hub of a hotel. Everything happens through there. Mm-hmm. So it's like, housekeeping are coming to you, the restaurant's coming to you, the spa's coming to you. Everything happens through that one core hub. And so I really got to, as I moved up and as I got invited into like the more company-wide meetings, I really got a sense of how that role impacts the greater business. And I got to create processes that ultimately led to all the other aspects of the business thriving. And so that's what really sparked it as an idea or like even a concept as a career for me. I had always been on a path towards becoming a lawyer. Story for another day. And so it sort of triggered for me that, I really like this making a difference in a company beyond, contributing to the bottom line. It was like, okay, the people management side of things and the process management and all of the intricacies of just how people operate in their job role. And so when I started my own business, again, it was a bit of an accident. I started out more on the admin side and sort of quite naively, I hadn't seen anything online really about starting a business. It was before that whole boom, but very close. And so what happened for me was I went into businesses as freelance, having started a full company. I, went in face first, started a full company, and then all of my clients were like, you're literally running our whole business for us. And so I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's like what I did in my job, obviously. Like, yeah, that's just how I operate. And so I started to like get promoted within my client positions as well. And then really stepped back and looked at, okay, well, like, what am I doing within people's companies? I'm managing their operations. What do I want to do within people's companies? I want to be able to bring founder-led businesses to a scale where they're operating as if they were a corporate business, in the sense where the founder actually has space to do other things, but they're not feeling bogged down by some of the corporate sort of annoyances and red tape and things like that. So that's really the roundabout story of it.
I love it. I have a similar story, and it's awesome when you kind of just fall into it and it's something that you're naturally good at, and then life takes you on this path where suddenly you're a business owner and you're working through it. So I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, business owners, entrepreneurs, we do struggle with these systems and processes. We try our best, and usually it's either not our strong suit or we just don't know. Like, you and I didn't go to business school. How are we supposed to know how to set these things up and scale them to a place where we're not doing everything all the time? So if you were to give some advice to an entrepreneur, like first steps to start to streamline operations, maybe before they take a step to hire someone like you in your company, what would be those tips that you would suggest?
100% the best piece of advice I could give is just getting a really good understanding of what is going on in your business, because without that clarity, it is even more difficult to understand what you need to do in order to sort of fix things and to get over that first hurdle. And so something that we always do with all of our clients is essentially like a master list exercise. And it's just brain dumping everything that's going on right now. Like, what are you pouring your time into? If you have any contractors, what are they doing? And then sort of ranking those things. It's like, okay, well, what of that do I enjoy doing? What of that am I really good at? What of that is really contributing to growing the business? And on the opposite side, what's not? And from there, it's like, okay, well, these things potentially I need to look at whether I need to optimize it further because the process is sticky, or maybe I need to hire someone to handle it. Maybe I need to get some education on it because it does make sense for me to handle it. There's so many different avenues in order to improve these things, but without the clarity of like what it is that you want to improve, then you're always just going to be sort of chasing your tail.
Yeah, no, I love that exercise. It's also probably very stress relieving to get everything out on paper that you're trying to accomplish and do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I always speak to clients about this sort of internal versus external battle where we've got everything held within us as founders, and we've got all of these great ideas that we want to work on. And one of the best exercises that you can do as a founder to increase your capacity to hold more is to get more out of you, whether it's putting it in a calendar, whether it's writing a to-do list, whether it's journaling, whether it's moving your body and releasing that energy. Like, all of these things increase our capacity to be able to take on more, which is so important when you're someone that wants to do as much as possible all the time.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think when you hold it in, it does just that. It blocks you. It blocks any of that creativity. It makes you stressed. It makes you someone that maybe your team doesn't want to be around. And so we talk a lot about that on my shows, just prioritizing yourself over the business, because the business is just a reflection of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And no, it's a tricky one as a founder, because even what you were saying about your team, it's like there are certain things that only you as the founder should be holding. And, there is a certain weight that comes with being a business owner. And so really learning how to manage that and to balance that and to turn to the right people rather than, take things out on your team, or even having conversations with your team that potentially you shouldn't be, it's an art form. It's like a consistent dance that you've got to learn how to maneuver.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any tips for when is the right time to shift from like solopreneur, you're doing everything yourself, to now, okay, maybe I'm going to hire a virtual assistant or a contractor to help me take on some of that workload? Do you have, or do you find there's a sweet spot of when to do that?
I think it really depends on your business model, number one. So as an example, like I think I mentioned to you, we're starting a restaurant now. That business is like we're hiring from day one. Like, before we started, we've got things to do that we need to hire for. And so that business model equated to that. In the service industry and in the like founder business-led industry, it's quite different. But I would say that the sooner that you can get eyes on, not necessarily someone handling it for you, but eyes on the things that you're not 100% competent in, the better. Like that is the be all and end all of it. You know, there's only so far that you can go alone. So the sooner that you bring in support systems and the sooner that you bring in someone, even if it's just to tell you the things that you don't know, the better. And so when we're looking at businesses, typically in that sort of 0 to 10K mark, let's say, though, that beginning stages, building it as you go sort of situation, oftentimes the best support that they can get, first of all, is someone that's going to come in and say, these are the things that we need to look at for you to hire, rather than these are the tasks that you want to hire. Because tasks being taken off your plate is great if you have the systems and the infrastructure really to actually hand them off. But a lot of entrepreneurs in those beginning stages, what it actually takes in order to get someone to do tasks, it would be more beneficial to pour that energy into automating it or into really building like an actual efficient process rather than handing off your, you know, bodged together, inefficient workaround way of doing things.
Yeah, and there's different tasks and different types of even management tools that you can use that maybe, you know, when you write those things down, it's not necessarily a person that needs to be put in that seat, but maybe the coach, whoever is helping you, can find resources to help you automate certain things. So one I personally love, and I would love for you to share some of the platforms that you like, is I love Asana. That's what my team and I use for project management, and it's really helpful and user-friendly. And I love that all of our work conversations kind of stay in that atmosphere, and it allows us to see what's going on with the clients. I can also navigate, see what my team is working on, and I'm not sitting here having to text an email and be like, hey, did this get done? Did this get done? I can clearly see it. And so for me, that could have been a whole admin role technically, but I took the time to like set it up, so now it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So we use ClickUp, so very similar
Very
project
similar,
management
yeah.
tool. For us, it was just like, it's a lot more customizable in my opinion, and we had the time and space to pour into that. But exactly the same reasoning is that if everything is already in one place and as you're doing things, you're documenting, and there's also like this level of documentation that happens without you actually consciously documenting because you're working out of there, because you're putting everything in and checking tasks off, you know, that's already building up documentation in your business without the intentional work into it. It literally alleviates, as you said, almost a whole person in your business, and as you grow as well, an actual whole department. And so putting the time into that as a founder is just, yeah, one thing that I couldn't recommend more to anyone. And it goes hand in hand with that master list situation that I was speaking about. So like essentially, if I'm speaking with a business owner that really is working off like a piece of paper on their desk and their never ending emails, that's the first place we go, is master list. And then we use that to pull it into a project management system so that they can get that visibility, and then they can then filter that down as it becomes required.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about ClickUp, but I know the Asana that I currently have is free. So a lot of them also have a really user-friendly, like free startup, which if you even have like, I would say 1 to 2 team members, it's perfect. Like obviously if you're hiring more, then you're going to eventually have to pay, but it's so nice to start off even just with yourself to get used to it. And then when you integrate somebody, it becomes really seamless for them to understand how you're managing those tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. ClickUp's the same, and I couldn't agree more. There are so many free tools out there. Even when we think about like automating certain tasks and things like that, there is free solutions. And so tapping into those whilst you're in the building phases is so important. And it allows it to grow with you as well, because you're putting the groundwork in, you know, as you're still building, rather than having to, you know, once you get past that 10K per month mark, you really are like, there is a certain level of things you already have within the business. And so to strip that all back and recreate, you know, down the line becomes a bigger and bigger job the further you get. So if you can start now by just even, as you said, getting used to a platform and like spending a little bit of time in there yourself, you're going to fuel your own growth so much more as you grow, and like, and as you reach the point where you're feeling like you have more resources to pour into it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like going to save you so much headache in the long term. If you start when you're a smaller business, you only have one or two people helping you. And then even if you're by yourself, like it's such a good tool to have. And as someone who did used to do like a sticky note every day of my tasks, it is so freeing to have them in a specific spot that's like, okay, now I'm checking into work, and it's not like sticky notes all over my personal space. So I completely agree. I would love to talk a little bit about what I mentioned previously in the beginning of working in your business versus working on your business. And I think both as an expert in this field, but also as a founder yourself, that conversation can feel overwhelming, especially to the person who's new or starting the business. I mean, I'm only year 3 and I still feel like I'm trying to wrap my head around the difference between working in versus on.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different avenues we could go down with this conversation. I think the thing that comes to mind for me as most important is the time management piece, and is the really understanding like what your role is in this business, like, and what do you want it to be as well? Like, what are you working towards versus what it is now? This is something that I'm always speaking about with clients, is like this almost gap analysis, again, taking those corporate processes and trying to make them a little bit more fun and founder led. But this gap analysis of like, okay, well, we're here right now and this is where we want to be. What's all the stuff in between, and how do we almost break that down a bit? And so when we think about that with working in versus on, we really need to look at what is the role that you want to have within your business long term. Because in terms of like the on your business, there is so many pieces of that we can immediately automate, immediately like tighten up and make it really streamlined, especially in those beginning stages, so that the time that you need to spend on is minimal. If your goal is to be the one consistently delivering the service and always the one pouring into clients, and like if that's what your business model is built around, then it's like, okay, well, we use that as a web and we build everything out amongst that so that the on is very minimal and it's just the stuff that actually really drives the business forward. Mm-hmm. And so again, it's just that clarity of like, okay, well, what do you want it to look like so that we can build it with that in mind? And of course, you need that split of in versus on to even consider that. And that's where the time management piece comes in. I think like the biggest journey that I've been on as a founder is really managing my own capacity. And that looks like all the things I mentioned before of, you know, looking after myself and that sort of stuff. But then also the really baseline, simple and like black and white level of it, which is managing your time efficiently. And again, that's helped by clarity too, just by understanding like, okay, what do I need to spend my time doing?
Do you find that your clients have difficulty with that clarity of the things that they actually want to do, because they end up doing everything and they almost forget why they started and what parts they like of it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a process that I talk to my clients about this in every aspect of their business. And it's this little framework, which is find the pattern, fix the problem, refine. And when you're in the trenches and you're growing, you know, there are so many things that you take on that potentially you didn't think you'd like, or you actually really don't like, or you found something that you loved, but it's not the best use of your time. Like that, all of these little webs and offshoots can happen. And when we strip back and we think about scaling, it is really this process of like, okay, well, what are the patterns here? Because finding out what you like and what works and what feels really good is also a journey of like, well, how long does this take me versus how long it would take a team member? And because I have clients that absolutely love certain parts of their business and they could spend absolutely all day, you know, with their head in Canva or anything like that. They could spend all of their time doing that. But actually, when they step back and look at what makes sense for the business and what makes sense for their greater goals and what they actually want as a whole, it's like, okay, well, we're going to need to take that off of your plate, or at least going to need to reduce that so that, you know, it really, you're getting what you want out of it. Because the other side of pouring everything into one department is that you're also going to start to really feel the weight of the other sides that aren't working as efficiently as well.
That's such a good point.
That refinement piece is so important, because it's not about having all of the answers all at once. It's not like, okay, when I sit down, I know that, you know, in 5 years' time, I'm not going to be doing any of this, or I'm going to be doing this and this is what it's going to look like. It's not, that's great clarity, but that's not a given that you're going to wake up one day and know that. It's about consistently reassessing and looking at like how you're feeling, how the business is performing, like all of the elements that go into it, and really assessing for what you need to refine in order to get where you're going.
I think also too, those things could potentially change. They, you know, you might go into your business. For me, social media, I went in, I was like, oh, I love, you know, creating all this stuff and running the accounts and coming up with the ideas. And now that I'm 3 years in, I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I want someone else to be the creative who has the capacity for that, and for me to come in and improve or strategize at a grander scale. And so it also can evolve. And I think being okay with that evolution is important as well, because I think when we start a business, sometimes we get so stuck on the role that we initially thought we were going to be playing that we don't allow for the conversation to continue and evolve into something else.
100%. Yeah, absolutely agree. And that's where that little cycle comes in. I think the fact of calling it a cycle is that the whole business is always evolving, or you want it to be always evolving for it to be growing and for it to be doing the things you want it to be. Therefore, you want yourself to always be evolving as well, and just accepting that fact that business is quite cyclical and that you're going to always go through these different phases, and sort of you have square one 15 different times in a 5-year time frame. And just like really accepting that is what allows you, I think, to be a great entrepreneur. It's what allows you to be innovative, and it's what allows you to push past the limits that you've previously set for yourself. Because that's another thing too, is like, I think the glass ceiling is something a lot of entrepreneurs talk about. And as you break through that and you get to this new level, there's a new level of capacity that you need. There's a new level of understanding of your business that you need. There's a new level of potential that you can tap into. And just understanding that's a good thing. That's not oh, the world's falling down around me and it feels so scary and it feels so hard because we're starting afresh and, you know, we're going through this pattern again. It's like, no, that's a good thing, because that means we're evolving. That means we're moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. What advice do you give to your clients, and as well as yourself as a founder, on taking care of yourself, prioritizing yourself? Maybe it's boundaries, maybe it's certain self-care practices, because I think a big part of productivity, operations, all of these things is, and time management, is getting sucked into the time. And suddenly we're working 24/7 and we're putting all of our effort into our business, and relationships fail, or now our health is suffering. So how do you manage that balance?
There's the project management side of it and the time management side, which in my opinion is, like, for me personally as well, my greatest form of self-care. Like, without my calendar, my day is a mess, and like I'm not having a good time if I don't have access to my calendar. But on the other side of it, I am a really big advocate for pouring into yourself as a whole, whether it's your sleep, whether it's exercise, whether it's what you're eating, whether it's the personal development, the spiritual side. All of these things are super important to be thriving as an individual. And so for me, it's not about saying like, well, you need X morning routine, or you need to go or do 10K steps, whatever. It's about finding what works for you and just accepting that as well. So for me, I went on this massive journey of not allowing myself the self-care because it didn't look like what everyone was pinning up on Instagram, or didn't look like what people were saying was like the best morning routine. And so I went on this journey of like almost not allowing myself to have what fueled me, and getting to the end of that and sort of really realizing, okay, well, I work best first thing when I wake up. And so what I do is I have a 2-hour block first thing when I wake up, no one bother me, no distractions, nothing. And once that 2-hour block ends, then I have a shower, make my breakfast, go on a walk, and then I start my self-care part of my day, and then I go into my actual day. So rather than my morning routine looking like, oh, I'm in the ice bath as soon as I wake up, and I'm, you know, all of these things that the internet tells you, I just had to find what worked for me. And that's something that I give to my clients all the time, is really working with them to look at the patterns that exist within their day, and how, like, what's indicating to them that they're feeling good or not feeling good, and how we can replicate that moving forward.
That's an incredible point. And I think you're so right. Social media gets in our heads, and suddenly we all need to be waking up at 5 a.m. We all need to be doing the ice bath and all the things. And it's like, that could actually feel very draining to certain people. And if you're feeling drained, now you're just starting your day in that place of like, I don't even want to be doing this. And so I think the biggest conversation there is about allowing yourself permission to explore what feels good. And then once you find it, giving yourself the permission to just follow that path and do what feels good to set yourself up for success, your day, your week. How do you set up your calendar? I have to know. I'm sure it's very organized.
It is very organized. A lot of people, like, it gives them a bit of a skip in their heart, but for me, it really helps. And also when I break it down for people, they be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So essentially my calendar, every single thing operates through it, whether it is eating my lunch, walking the dog, like whatever it is, it's in my calendar. And sometimes it's not as granular as like I might have like a 2-hour block that's blocked out for a multitude of tasks or certain things, but everything's in there. And I use Google Calendar. So essentially I have probably 10 to 15 different calendars that are all color coded and named for the sort of function or area of my life that it serves. And what I do is I'll start the week and my calendar looks absolutely amazing. It is all time blocked. There's a space for everything, which is the most important piece. There's space for rest. There's space for work. There's space for the weird little bits and pieces in life where you have to pop to the shops, or, you know, you have to take a phone call or go to the doctors. All of that's in there too. And then as I go through the week, rather than getting thrown off and it not being reflected in my calendar, I'm consistently adjusting. So that doctor's appointment ran 15 minutes over. Cool, I'm going to drag that time block down so it actually shows that in my calendar. And then all of the rest of my day is reflective of what it actually looked like for me. So it starts out and it's like this beautiful full screen rectangle that everything's time blocked and it looks wonderful. And then it ends with things being a bit more overlapped, or there being chunks of time where there's a gap, or there being sort of overlapping things, because that is how my life actually looked like that day. And I think that was the most important piece of actually really getting to grips and having my calendar be useful, was having it be an actual reflection of what my day looked like and what my time looked like, rather than this like goal vision board. Well, I want my day to look like this, and, you know, I'm great at time blocking, and so all of these time blocks have to happen exactly as they look all the time, or otherwise it doesn't work. Like, really letting go of that and just accepting that the best thing that I can do for myself is ensuring that I have time for everything that I want to do laid out, and I'm moving that time as my day allows and as my day almost forces me to. Unfortunately, that is the case sometimes. And it's just reflective, and that allows it to be a tool of reflection itself. So I get to go back and say, okay, well, here's a pattern. 3 weeks in a row, this task has actually taken me way longer, or I've got pulled into this every Tuesday for the last 2 weeks. And actually it makes sense if I adapt, and next Tuesday I'm going to put a time block in there and I'm going to plan my week around that, so that there's less jiggling or there's less feeling of, you know, lack of control with my day, because I've been able to find the patterns and put that in and refine based on that.
How do you tackle, and maybe you don't experience this, maybe it's just something I experience, I will have things on my calendar. Let's say it's work. I block out I'm going to work in the morning, and I wake up that day and I'm like, I am just not in it today. Like, I am not in it. I want to shift it to the afternoon. And usually if I end up doing that, I'm more productive, because then in the afternoon I was in a better mood or whatever it is. So is that something as simple as shifting the calendar, or do you really try to stay regimented and be like, hey, this is what I said I was going to do, I'm going to do it?
Depends. I think there is a lot of power in actually listening to your body and understanding, like, as you said, if you're going to be more productive at that time, sometimes it doesn't make sense for you to force it and to just get it done. Other times it does. Like, as a business owner, other times you just got to get it done. You've got to do it when you said you're going to do it. And so there's that really core balance of listening to yourself. But the way that I manage it is first having that check-in, personal reflection of like, okay, well, am I doing this because like it actually is going to make more sense for the task or for the time or whatever? Or am I doing this because, you know, I'd rather go out and get a coffee right now and sit in a coffee shop for an hour. What's the actual reason there? And then if I make the decision to shift time, typically what I'm doing is I've got pieces of rest or time blocks in my calendar allowed for already in my day. So I'll typically just shift that up, and that time now exists in the morning, and move everything else down. And so it's just a consistent rejiggle, which, to be honest, happens like for me 15, 20 times a day, where it's like, okay, that doesn't work there anymore, or I'm going to have to do that later, or I want to spend more time doing this, so let's put that to tomorrow. And it's without the visibility of everything that I've got going on and everything that's required of me, I wouldn't have that capability. And it would just leave me feeling like, oh, well, I didn't get to that, so like I'm a failure, or when am I going to have time to do that? Like, now that I didn't do it then, like, when does that actually work? Or all of these things. And so that visibility piece is so important there. It's what allows me to have that flexibility within a quite stringent structure anyway.
Yeah, I love that. I do not at all have the rigidity that you have when it comes to the calendar. I aspire to be that way, but I do have certain ones that, like you said, if I do it every single day or it's happening every single week, I'm like, okay, let me just time block this. But I think the fluidity of what you're saying totally makes sense, because it's like, then it also doesn't feel restrictive. It feels like, okay, well, we can move these things around. They still need to get done. Like you said, is it something we need to be doing right this second? Is it a meeting? Is it something we can't cancel? Or can we shift it later this afternoon, next week, whatever it is? And that's kind of what I do with my Asana tasks too. Like, I'll have tasks in there that I know I want to get ahead on, but okay, now it's a busy day, something came up, let me shift it. And so I love that mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was also, this is a main mission of mine really, is helping founders understand that like structure doesn't have to be restrictive. It gets to be something that you rely on, that works for you, rather than exactly how the internet's told you, or something that's, putting you in a box and keeping you there, that you have no choice but to stick to. And like, that's, again, like, I'm on a consistent journey with myself of like, what even the daily blocks look best like that changes for me every 3 months as I go through different seasons of business and I go through different seasons of life. And allowing yourself to accept that, as I said, like at the start of the week, my calendar looks so stunning and it's absolutely beautiful. And by the end of it, you look back and you're like, girl, you okay?
Things changed.
So allowing myself that, like, not only let go of control, but also like getting control out of the other areas, was just the biggest opener to my capacity and like to how I feel in my day. Like, it's so freeing for me personally, as someone that loves structure, but also like I am a multi-passionate through and through. I'm a manager. I'm a little bit all over the place, which is why when I was younger, I was like, I need some sort of structure. Let me be type A. Let me find all of these ways to organize my life. It's because like I am one of those people, like I needed it for myself. And so I've found these ways, and I'm always refining these ways where it gets to be flexible, but it also gets to be supportive of where I'm going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I love that you found what is working for you now, and it evolves and you're being flexible with it. I want to switch the conversation a little bit to your new business, your new baby. And I want to start the conversation out by kind of going back to the calendar. You recently are working on starting a restaurant chain. Obviously a completely different type of business than your service-based, more virtual side of your other company. So how did that look in your calendar? Like, how did you begin to mesh, obviously still running your business that you currently had, while also taking on a huge venture of starting up a restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a long process of starting before I even had the idea to start the restaurant. So when we moved to Australia, we had this understanding that my time would shift a lot. So I do a lot of my work in the morning, which is my most productive time. And it's also the most fitting time for our clients, because we've got clients in the US, Canada, and the UK. And so everyone's time zones, it makes sense for me to be online in the morning, and then sort of by 11 o'clock, they're tapped out. And I'm an early bird, so like 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. is essentially my working hours. And then I typically will work in the afternoons, but nothing's required of me. It's more just like me tapping into like my creative projects or things that I want to do. And so when we moved, we had this understanding that's what my time would look like. I've done a full day's work by midday. And so after moving and sort of really catching up with, oh, that happened, like, oh, I have a lot more time and like I have a lot more. And the other side of it is being in the UK, I was sort of, it was cold and rainy and I just wanted to stay inside and like I didn't really want to go out and live my life. But as soon as we moved here and I had this like whole portion of my day where the sun was shining and like I had built this beautiful life and I retired my partner temporarily. He's straight back into work now with the restaurant. I'll venture together.
You just said it was a joke. We're back into it.
We're going again. We're going faster than we have before. But I was like, I had in my mind that I want another project. Like I want something to pour my time into. I was like, my brain was tingling with ideas. And then the actual idea for the restaurant was completely accidental. It was, I had a desire for something that didn't exist in the world, voiced it, and my partner was like, oh my God, that needs to exist. And I was like, yeah, actually it does. We could do that. And quite naively, we were just like, yeah, we could do that, and ran into it. So I had that buffer already in my calendar of like, well, I have some extra space and I have some extra time, and like I have built my business enough, and like in the sense where it runs in a pretty streamlined way. Like everything happens sort of without me. My role is quite documented and what I need to do, like I'm in a good flow with it. I know how that works. Of course, there are things that sometimes go outside of those hours, or I pour into projects where it's, you know, not as routine, I'd say. But it was like, okay, I feel good with this business and like I know what's happening. And so the other side that happened when we decided to start was, I'm doing this with my partner and my best friend. So it is not all falling on me, which I think as like a second business has been the biggest blessing ever, to be able to have people that are building it with you from the get-go with the same mission, the same values, you know, working off the exact same hymn sheet, rather than it just being, you know, me trying to build from the beginning. Because there is definitely times, and even like now, so we've been doing this for the last 6 months, there are times where like one business has to take priority for me for the whole day. And that works both ways, like both with the restaurant and with my business, where it's like, sorry, I'm out of office, I've got shit to do, like I really just need to focus on this. And so having the others to really fall back on, and also I guess emotionally take it as well, has been just the biggest blessing, but also what I'd attribute to it being possible as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so fun that you get to experience both sides, right? Like you had this time where you were building a business by yourself, and I'm sure you have a team now that helps you with that. And now to have, but still you're the only founder, right? And now to have this side where you have other people who can contribute to the ideas, get creative with you, and all of that. So I would love to hear the restaurant idea, and then I would love for you to explain like your role versus your partner, your best friend, and how you guys are working, because I know that could be sticky too. Like having other founders could also be a tough situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
All communication.
It's been a learning curve, that's for sure. So the restaurant concept is, there are these like yogurt bars here in Australia. I don't know if you have them in the US, but essentially like you go in and you pour a cup of yogurt, and then you go to like a counter and you put whatever toppings.
Yes, we have those.
So my idea was doing that, but for chips. So like loaded fries, a loaded fry bar. So you go in and you dispense your chips, and then you go to a counter and you can top it with whatever you want. You can make
Gosh, that sounds delicious.
You can make like Mexican loaded fries. You can make literally whatever you want. I'm a fussy eater, so whenever like loaded fries are at like a stall or a restaurant or anything, like I don't eat cheese, so I'm always asking like, can you not put cheese, can you not put sour cream, and it just becomes a faff and I end up not having it. But actually I really love it. Like it's such a good food. I absolutely love fries as well, like they're my guilty pleasure. And so this idea stemmed from, you know, wanting to be able to pick and choose what I wanted and have it be really good quality, rather than being like typical loaded fries where it's like at a fairground, or, you know, and it's just like junk food. It was like, well, how can we make a nutritional meal on top of chips, and like how can we make it really good quality food and like chef quality and have it be, yeah, self-serve, removing the sort of buffet feeling as well. That was really important to us. So it's like it's really sleek, minimal sizes, and like it just looks really put together. It is really put together, chef quality, organic, all that side of it. And so that's the concept. We've had to, machines don't exist. They exist for yogurt, but not for chips. So we've had to get an engineer to build us these chip dispensers and all sorts. So it's been an absolute whirlwind. It's so much fun. Like when we tell people the idea, they're just like, one, yum. Two, like it's like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory feeling of like how much fun can you have with a restaurant. And so we're in a really beachy, touristy part of Australia, probably like one of Australia's like top holiday destinations for Australians. And so that adds to the element for us of being able to have this really fun place where it's like come in off the beach and grab it and you can take it to the beach or you can eat upstairs, and like just adding back in that like young culture, because where we are it's like the mix between the upper middle class and like it's a little bit lots of fancy restaurants rather than lots of fun places. Also lots of young people visiting. So yeah,
that's so fun. It sounds so delicious. How did you integrate your love for productivity, operations, your whole other business? How did you navigate integrating that into this business? And were your co-founders like mind blown that you had all these skills and all these things that you were going to implement?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember one of our first meetings with like an external advisor, and it was a pitch actually, and I went in and I'd done the business plan and the forecasting and also the growth plans. So we plan to have at least 3 within the next 18 months of opening our first. So it's like aggressive scaling really, which requires a lot operationally. So after we went into that meeting and they kept trying to catch me out, it felt like Shark Tank, where they'd ask a question but I'd have the answer. And so after it, my partner turned to me and he was like, you were on fire. Like, he was like, I didn't know that was like how it worked for you, like how your brain worked. You just had everything there and ready to go. And so that was a really nice feeling of like that introduction, and it's trickled down. Like they have a fuller understanding now of my capabilities and get to see me in action, and also get to see it help them because they're first time founders. So they've never had a business before. And they're really learning all of the things that I've gone through over the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I get to sort of walk beside them and show them there's like a better way to do things, or, you know, walk them through different things. And so that's been really rewarding for me personally. But like, as I did mention, it has 100% been a learning curve, like working with your partner and your best friend. Not for the faint-hearted. And so like one thing now is like my best friend pretty much moved in to our house, which means I'll be brushing my teeth and having a conversation about something, or getting a knock on the shower door and helping solve a problem. And that's been like a capacity expander for me because everything's been online and I get to shut my laptop and put work away. Whereas now I have like people standing in front of me whilst I'm cooking dinner, or even in person down at the restaurant. It's very different because they're there needing something from you immediately. And it's like, it's a whole different level of holding more. But also on the other side of that, it's really opened up our relationship for really open communication and just like complete honesty with where we are and how we're handling things, and almost allowed us to be like even greater of a support system for each other because we have so much more context of what's going on in each other's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine so. I would imagine you learn a lot about communication, but I feel like it's such a great opportunity to go to the depths of your relationship and to make them grow deeper. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but to deepen the relationships and allow you to get to certain levels that you might not have been able to without deciding to go into business together. Do you feel that you're still using those same self-care practices, even though, your words, you are holding more in a different way than a virtual business?
Absolutely. And I think this is the other side of where the refinement has been so important, and like the adapting, because the way that I was, looking after myself 12 months ago is different to it is now. But that doesn't mean that I'm not being looked after. So I essentially am consistently looking at what's working, what do I need. And for me right now, the biggest struggle, I guess, or my biggest like point that I'm looking for growth in is sleep. That's not out of stress or choice or anything. However, on the other side of it, I'm a morning person. We're opening a restaurant that's open 10 till 10. And whilst we won't be in there full time, or we won't be in there for a considerable period, we're sort of like on a 3-month training plan with our staff, documenting everything, and then we're out and we're opening the next one. I do need to shift my routine to be there in the evenings, some evenings. So I'm starting to do that now, where I'm like trying to stay up later and then and wake up a little bit later. And I'm finding that personally really difficult because I love the mornings, and like it's still like 6, half 6, but I'm going to bed at 10:30, 11. That's way too late for me. I'm like ready to clock out.
Agreed.
And so it's like this balance of like, okay, well, what else do I need to do to support myself? If I am working towards that and I want to really actually shift the routine, what else do I need to give myself to make that feel better? And so, yeah, it's just a balancing act. And it's like that constantly looking for the patterns and looking how things are affecting you. And whilst it doesn't look the same, as a whole, like I'm still fitting in exercise and eating well and sleeping, and all of those things are still very much a priority. Just the way that they're being pulled into my life may look a bit different.
Yeah, and it's not about perfection, right? It's like, if you made it happen 3 times this week and normally it's 5, that's still good. 1 is better than none. And I think it's so important that, like you just said, you're in this time of a push, you're in this time of routine change. So what can you make out of it and what can you get done? A little bit goes a long way. So I totally love that you're in that in between, but you're trying to make the best of it. And that will kind of take me to my next question of, obviously, I love to share female founded stories on this podcast. And I think one of the greatest things is that in between moment. And you are for sure in an in between now, but I know it's not the only one, especially in your businesses. So I would love to hear your advice for someone who's in the in between. Maybe they're starting a business, maybe they're just in their corporate life still and they have some dreams or ideas and they're looking into expanding. What advice would you give them?
I think that like this capacity thing is such a huge conversation for the in-between, because everything you do contributes to how you move through the rough times and the good times. And what's really important to me is stepping back and realizing that each decision you make towards something is compounding. As you said, if it's 3 walks a week and not 5, that is compounding towards getting out of the in-between and, pushing towards your greater mission. And recognizing even the smallest of things that you're doing and how they contribute is so important, because it's all the things that allow you to enjoy the process of what you're doing. And that's important, because enjoying the process, if you don't, the whole thing is a moot point. Like if you're just working towards the end goal and you don't stop and sort of smell the roses, or you're so caught up in it, the actual reaching the end goal isn't actually going to be all that great. The point is to enjoy the process. And so really taking stock and understanding all of these little things and having a moment of gratitude for them, and also a moment of pulling your hair out and then moving through it, and just recognizing those compounding moments, recognizing all of the stuff that you get to do, that you choose to do, and how it contributes to that overall goal that you're going after is, yeah, that's where the real satisfaction should lie, rather than hitting a certain milestone.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I am going to have to come to Australia to try the new restaurant, and maybe eventually you'll franchise and bring it out to the US and we'll all get to experience it. That would be incredible.
That would be incredible.
We're putting it out there into the universe if it was to happen. Are you taking new clients in your other business?
Certainly am. Nothing has changed.
Awesome. Well, I would love for you to share all your Instagrams, all your businesses, obviously your operations side, if people want to contact you to learn more about that, have some sort of discovery call. And then, of course, shout out the restaurant in case we're ever in the area. You never know.
Absolutely. So you can follow pretty much, or you can get to all of my social profiles through Rhi Pearce. You can get to Chip and Mix, which is the restaurant in Noosa, Australia, and you can also get to Ops by RVPA, which is our operations side, through that profile as well. So I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes.
Yes, we will definitely include it in the show notes. Thank you so much. All the way from Australia. I know you have a very early morning. I will put everything about Rhi in the show notes. Make sure you follow @InBetweenConvos on Instagram, and have a wonderful day.